Welcome to the Plants versus Animals Term 2 review note session. Very beginning, we're going to start by just writing plants versus animals at the very top of our notes. Then once we do that, I want you to take your sheet of paper and I want you to draw a line about halfway down the middle, maybe draw a straighter line than I just did. And then we're going to box off the middle just like this. And I'm going to explain why we're going to do this here in a second. Okay? All right, so now that we have that all done, what we want to do is go ahead and talk about what the major differences are between plant and animal cells. First thing I want to start off by saying both of these are eukaryotic cells, so they're going to have a lot of things in common. And in fact, they're going to have more things in common than they have dissimilar with one another. But we're going to quickly go over what those things are, and we're going to start by showing you a visual representation of both types of cells. The first thing to remember, let's go ahead and start with plant cells, is that plant cells traditionally are going to have a very different shape than the cells that you would see in animals. So in plant cells, you're usually going to see a structure that looks more like a box. So go ahead and draw that box in for me on your paper. The reason why we're going to see this box-like structure is because plant cells have something called a cell wall along the outside. So this is going to be our cell wall. Along the inside of that cell wall is something that all cells have in common, and this structure is going to be called our cell membrane. And if you remember from our previous set of notes, our cell membrane is just the bouncer of the cell. So I'm going to go ahead and label this the cell membrane so we have that written down. So I have my cell membrane and I have my cell wall. Now I have those two structures and I can visually see the difference between what a plant cell looks like. It has this box-like structure because of that cell wall that's along the outside. I'm going to go ahead and start filling in what we're going to have on the inside. One of the very first things that you'll notice if you look at a plant cell is that there's this large structure that takes up a lot of space. And this large structure contains water and other nutrients. So we're going to say water and nutrients, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. And this structure has a specific name. This structure is called a large central vacuole. So let's go ahead and fill that in. And that's an important structure because these are one of the things that you're only going to see in plant cells. So now we have a cell wall that's only in plant cells as compared to animals, and a large central vacuole. Now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some other things. So plant cells do have a lot of things in common with animal cells. So they still have this large round structure, and this is called my nucleus, and this is the control center of the cell that doesn't change. Coming off of that, we still have the road of the cell, and the road of the cell is called the endoplasmic reticulum, and we have both the smooth and the rough endoplasmic reticulum that is found in plant cells. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. And then once I have that, I'm going to make sure that I draw my dots or my ribosomes on this so that I know this is my rough versus my smooth. And you should go ahead and label the differences between those two types of cells because you're going to see it again. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is my smooth ER and this is my rough ER. And you should label the same thing on your paper. Other structures that we're going to find present inside of the cell, you're going to find the Golgi apparatus, which is the post office of the cell. And remember, that's going to be just stacks of pancakes inside of the cell that helps to transport substances into and out of the cell. So I'm going to go ahead and label this as my Golgi. And remember, it can either be a Golgi body or a Golgi apparatus. Another structure that I'm going to have inside of my plant cell, which is unique to plant cells, is something called chloroplasts. And my chloroplasts are circular in nature, and they are a double membrane structure, and the easiest way to tell them apart is that, again, they have these stacks of cookies inside of them. So I'm going to go ahead and label this my chloroplast. So my chloroplast is present as well. Now also in plant cells, we're still going to have a powerhouse because we still need to make energy. So we're still going to have a structure that looks like a kidney bean that has a maze inside of it. And this is going to be my mighty mitochondria. And we're going to squeeze it in right on the side. So all of those structures are still present, and I hope that you still know that we still have this liquid medium, and that liquid medium is still my cytoplasm. That hasn't changed. And we're also going to have ribosomes that are floating around inside the cell as well. So these are going to be my ribosomes, which are my site of protein synthesis. So visually, we can clearly see that there are some unique things that are found in plant cells. Now let's go over and talk about our animal cells really quickly. Now, unlike our plant cells, our animal cells are not going to be square. Our animal cells are actually going to be round or kind of blobby. They kind of look like this. And the reason why they're not going to be square is because all an animal cell has is a cell membrane. There's no cell wall to maintain that rigid shape. Okay? Now, once we have that, we can go ahead and start filling in our important structures. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in my nucleus. And I know that it's a nucleus. It has a nucleus because it's an eukaryotic cell structure. Once I have my nucleus, I can go ahead and start filling in my endoplasmic reticulum that's always attached to the nucleus. And then coming off of that, I can have some more ER, but this ER is going to have ribosomes attached to it. And because the ribosomes are attached to it, it's going to have a different job and also a different feel. And so it's going to take on a different name. So we can go ahead and label this. This is going to be our smooth ER, and this is our rough ER. So that's go ahead and label that. So that's no different. Both the plant cells and the animal cells have endoplasmic reticulum. The other thing that we can go ahead and fill in, we know that there has to be a powerhouse of the cell. So there's going to be a mitochondria. So I can go ahead and fill in my mitochondria. All animal cells have it. And I can label that. We're still going to have ribosomes floating around the cell, because these are our site of protein synthesis. So I can go ahead and label my ribosomes. And I'm going to go ahead and label my liquid because this is still found in animal cells. This is my cytoplasm. Now I'm going to start to fill in some other structures that are significant. So some other structures that you might see are the post office of the cell, which again just looks like these stacks of pancakes. And this guy is my Golgi. I can go ahead and label it my Golgi body. Okay, and then we're also going to have structures that look like circles, but they're not as big as the nucleus, and they're not as small as the ribosome. And this guy right here is going to be my lysosome. And if you remembered from our previous lysosome, if you remember from our previous discussion, you know that lysosomes are only found in animal cells. So some other things, just to make sure we have everything we need, we have ER, smooth and rough, we have our nucleus, we have our Golgi, we have our ribosomes, we have our mitochondria. It looks like we have all of the major structures that we need. So now let's go ahead and talk about this box down here that I had you fill out. This box is going to be things that are shared by plant and animal cells. So we can just go ahead and start filling it in. We know that they both have a nucleus. So that's one thing that we can go ahead and put down. We know that they both have cytoplasm. They clearly both have a Golgi body because we can see that in our picture. Both have a cell membrane. They both have ER, both smooth and rough. And obviously all cells have ribosomes. We've talked about that before. And I think that pretty much covers all of the major things that they have in common. Now on opposite sides, we're going to write differences or things found only in animals, and then things found only in plants, because there's going to be some compare and contrast on your test. So if we look at this picture, things only found in plants are going to be our cell wall. We also have a large central vacuole. And then finally we have our chloroplast. And if we hop on over to the animal side, animals are pretty simple. Everything that they have, plants have, with one exception. And the one exception is the lysosome. So lysosomes are only found in animal cells. All right, guys, those are the major differences and also some things that plants and animals have in common. Make sure you use your notes to help you fill out the challenge questions on your day sheet. Good luck.